Good evening. Today, once again, I'm in front of all of you, and the title of today's topic would be historical background of Constitution of India. Dear friends, there are certain events which greatly influenced the Constitution of independent India. First of all, let me tell you that India was under company rule from 1773 till 1858, and thereafter British Crown took direct control of Indian administration. And connecting the point which I left earlier, that where I was talking about the events which greatly influenced the constitution of independent India, I am starting with Regulating Act of 1773. Friends, it designated the governor of Bengal as the Governor General of Bengal and provided him with executive council of four members to assist him. The first such Governor General was Lord Warren Hastings. This act made the Governor of Bombay and Madras subordinate to the Governor General of Bengal, unlike earlier when these three presidencies used to be independent. It established Supreme Court at Calcutta in 1774, comprising one Chief Justice and three other judges. It prohibited the servants of the company from engaging in private trade or accepting any presents or bribes from natives. This act strengthened the control of British government over the company by requiring court of directors to report on its revenue, civil and military affairs in India. The next important act was Pitt's India Act of 1784, and the important thing about this act was it made for the first time distinction between the political and commercial affairs of the country. Court of directors were exclusively left to manage the commercial affairs of the country, and a new body was created called Board of Control to manage the political affairs of the company. And this act empowered the Board of Control to supervise and direct all the civil and military government affairs of company in India. The next important act was Charter Act of 1833 as well as Charter Act of 1853. And then, in the wake of Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, which is also called Great Revolt of 1857, which is also known as First War of Indian Independence, British government came out with Government of India Act of 1858, and hereafter British Crown took direct control of Indian administration. And now British realized that to avoid such revolt in future, they need to associate Indians with the British government and British administration in India. And to pursue this, following this policy, they came out with Indian Council Act of 1861, Indian Council Act of 1892, and Indian Council Act of 1909. 1909 Act is also known as Morley-Minto reforms. Morley was the then Secretary of State for India, and Lord Minto was the then Viceroy of India. Thereafter, an important act came which is called Government of India Act of 1919, which is also called Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Lord Montagu was the then Secretary of State for India, and Lord Chelmsford was the then Secretary of State for India. And hereafter came a very, very important act which is known as Government of India Act of 1935, and it provided the structural basis for the Constitution of Independent India. And most of the provision of this act were borrowed and replicated in the Constitution of Independent India. And finally and lastly, British government came with the Indian Independent Act of 1947, and it was all about those events which largely shaped and greatly influenced the Constitution of Independent India. Thank you. Have a good time ahead.